What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Anything Liverpool YouTube channel with myself, Craig, Ben, and Drew. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us on this sort of impromptu Tuesday evening stream with a lot of news that's come out today. Alexander Isak has basically sold his house and he'd rather be homeless than play for Newcastle. Marc Guehi has apparently both confirmed personal terms and not confirmed personal terms, depending on if you listen to either Fabrizio Romano or Bad News Pierce. And then we obviously have Gianluca Di Marzio from Italy and also Fabrizio Romano, who's also Italian, mentioning that Liverpool are very much interested in Giovanni Leoni, with Gianluca Di Marzio just before we came on stream saying that this could be concluded in the next couple of hours. So it's almost as if Richard Hughes decided to take a little bit of a holiday after signing Ekitike and now has come back and is like, yeah, give me him, and him. And that's it. It seems to be the way it's gone. But lots of interesting stuff to talk about today. But if you haven't been here before, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure your notifications are on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. Also, Anything Liverpool are running their own FPL league this year with our pinned tweet on our Twitter. And also we'll get a link thrown into the description down below for after the stream. So make sure that you stick around for that. Deadline is to join before kickoff on Friday when Liverpool play against Bournemouth. So make sure you get your team ready and get joined into the league before then. Winner gets €100, which is about £85. Second place gets €50, which is about £45. And third place gets €25, which is about £20. And no, Drew, the winner of the cup gets nothing, if that's what you're looking forward to. For those that don't know, Drew is still a little bit salty that I knocked him out of the cup in our league last season, and he's complaining that I sound like Arsenal when I say that. But we let him have his moment. He got knocked out. But anyways, without further ado, I'll throw it over to our guests and sort of get their thoughts on the big sort of bombas of news today. Ben, I'll throw it over to you first, my friend. Welcome to the stream. First time you've been on. Happy to have you. What do you think of the news that's sort of come out today? It's kind of all come in one go. Oh, it's not really sort of been sporadic. It's like, here's Isak, now here's Leoni, now here's Guehi, and then personal terms agreed, and now we could have two centre-backs by midnight tonight.
Yeah, it's very traditional Liverpool, I guess, the last 7 or 8 years. I think, the likes of the centre-backs, that's not an off-the-whim decision that's happened in the last couple of days. There's obviously a lot of groundwork that's gone into that, and that's what Richards and Edwards before him were known for doing. So I think the fact it's coming out today is probably a testament to all the work that's already gone into signing centre-backs. Isak coming in and presumably potentially another winger coming in at some point. That's not going to be an off-the-whim decision. There's already all the work gone into that. It's the positions that people have highlighted that we need to maybe a bit more depth in. Certainly the centre-back area. And maybe the uncertainty around Konate signing a contract extension or not. So I think it's good. And obviously the big one, the Isak stuff, that's rumbling on. He's sort of putting his foot down there. I think for Newcastle's sake, they're going to want to get rid of him. I think more than anything now, it's going to affect the team going into next season. If he stays there, you've got a depreciating asset that is going to cause problems, and it's going to push players away that they want to buy. And I think we've already seen that this window. There's players that will not go there now because they've seen that actually there is a roof, and if you're not going to play by their rules, they'll hold you down and they'll make you suffer.
Yeah, it just, as you said, it's a depreciating asset, and as time goes on, it just gets worse and worse and worse from a Newcastle negotiation standpoint. Because, devil's advocate, Craig, let's say that Isak doesn't sign for Liverpool in this summer transfer window and still refuses to play. All of a sudden, January rolls around. They're not going to get anywhere close to the 120 million, 130 million that they may get now. That price immediately drops to maybe 100 million in January if Liverpool were to re-pursue that. What do you make of the whole Isak situation at the minute? You have Newcastle fans saying it's his fault, and it's the simple fact of the matter is that they're burning jerseys. It's Isak's fault. It's not on the club. Liverpool have tapped him up. But then you have the opposite side of it where Isak's agent is trying to control the narrative and say that, no, we told them for a year. This is our last year. We told them at the end of the season. We want it out. They're not facilitating for us. Do you think there's an element of truth on both sides, or is there one guilty party in this situation, Craig?
I'm glad you're asking me this, because I've said this 3 weeks ago. I was on TalkSport and I spoke to Alex Crook. My take on it is this, but the thing is, first of all, everything what's come out has been from the club side. Nobody's heard what Isak's actual say on it is. There's no smoke without fire, and like you just said there, he made it clear he wanted to leave last year, right before the end of last season. He had an agreement in place where they said he could leave in the summer. They've gone back on that. Now, my feelings on it is, and I've said from 3 weeks ago now, Isak will get sold for 130 million plus add-ons, and I'm not changing my mind on that. At the end of the day, now I've followed this from day one. It's very toxic now over there. They're trying to make us look to be the bad boys on this, which we're not. Liverpool not getting involved in a saga which is rumbling on. They're just waiting for Newcastle to, okay, say, well, this is what we want. But it's not Liverpool's fault that they can't bring in who they want. They failed on every target they've gone for. They've not got a sporting director, which is a massive problem. Isak's made it clear he wants to leave. Now, if you look at it, this is my take on it. I think we'll sign Isak because there's no way Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards are going to sell Luis Diaz, Darwin Núñez, without bringing anybody in. And unfortunately, we know what happened to Diego Jota, God rest his soul. So we've lost 3 strikers there. You're not going to let 2 quality strikers leave and not bring a replacement in, right? There's 3 weeks to go. The Newcastle playing a game of poker here. So they're calling Isak's bluff. He's calling their bluff. Now, I think the 2 centre halves will sign both of them, so I'm not worried about that. Isak will be a Liverpool player. I'm not worried about it. I think we'll sign him for 130 mil. But the way Newcastle are going about it, it doesn't look good, because if you're going to sign for Newcastle, who's going to want to go there when they look at how this is being played out? I mean, when the thing is, social media is toxic, and there's only probably 4 journalists, I believe, and if they don't say anything, then I don't take it as, as, how do you want to call it? I don't believe Indy for a kick-off. Fabrizio Romano, he's a blagger. He pinches everybody else's news and puts it out that it's his, and it's not for me. Apart from the Italian connections, but because he's Italian anyhow. So I think with Isak, it's just a matter of not if, but when. That's my thoughts on it. I think he will be a red, and he will wear number 9.
Speaking of Fabrizio Romano, we've just got some breaking news regarding both of the centre-back options that we've mentioned. We have breaking, first of all, that Giovanni Leoni is super excited about the Liverpool project. Liverpool itself and personal terms won't be an issue, and he's convinced. And then he went on to say that both Marc Guehi and Giovanni Leoni have said yes to Liverpool, and the negotiations are ongoing with the clubs for both at the moment. Now, not many people, other than myself, I suppose, because I've gone back and basically watched full match reviews of Leoni because I'm that much of a fucking nerd. Drew, before we start touching on the centre backs, what's your thoughts on the whole Isak situation? Because some people might call Liverpool fans hypocrites for how the Trent situation developed as opposed to how the Isak situation is developing. Are we hypocrites? Are all football fans hypocrites? I think they are, personally. They're very fickle. We'll turn coat on anything that we can as long as it fits our own agenda. And that is evident in every aspect of footballing world, whether it's online or not. But is it hypocritical for Liverpool fans to be this supportive of what Isak is doing when the Trent situation was similar, or was it similar at all, in your opinion, Drew?
I mean, I suppose you could find some hypocrisy in it, but I'm more on the side of it being a completely different situation. For me, what upset me most with Trent was how he went about it. Like, for the whole year, he was saying it wouldn't be played out in the media, but then he'd do interviews like random interviews and say stuff like the Ballon d'Or is the most important thing to him, and that like other stuff like that. Versus it's very clear from the start that Isak was like, I don't want to be here. Like I want Liverpool, get it done. Like that came out after the Ekitike transfer, but I don't think there's been any like cloak and dagger from Isak's side. It's very clear what he wants. He wants Liverpool. Newcastle, as Craig said, are kind of just like looking like idiots after failing for every transfer that they want. It's not a good look for them. It's almost like they're trying to save face in ways, like maybe like holding out a little longer, like saying they have the power, but everyone watching just is seeing them stumble and fall over time and time again. And it's almost at the point where you see like the rumors about Eddie Howe and Newcastle players. It's not good. You see the fan reaction. You see rumors about how the Newcastle players and manager are taking it. It's just such a poor situation to be in, and it's almost like you should wrap it up as quickly as you can. I know they're trying to cover their bases and get replacements in, but this isn't a situation like maybe I'm trying to think like of a one sec of another situation where a player did something like this, and the closest I can think of recent times is like Aubameyang, where he just went over to Barcelona, like, and then Arsenal kind of forced their hand. But they're like Coutinho with us, you know, he had that kind of injury where he played like he was injured, and then the move didn't work out, but then he went back. It wasn't as dragged on as this. Like Isak selling his house, you know, there's just certain lines that have already been crossed, but it's getting like worse and worse as you see it, like the news come out each day. That's where I feel like with Trent, it's different, where it's we didn't know. Like there was always this chance where like he could still play for us. Like this is, you know, his dream apparently before all the new dreams came out was to captain his boyhood club, like following the steps of Steven Gerrard. Like all these like kind of promises. I don't think Isak's ever said that he wants to retire at Newcastle or anything like that. So that's the main difference for me. And then of course the fee. Like if Newcastle gets 120 million for Isak plus add-ons, whatever it's going to be, that's more than enough to be happy with what he's done for the club and where he leaves them. So if they can present their project and then evidence showing that they didn't have the pull power to build on what they've done so far, because even before this Isak transfer, they weren't able to get in their targets. It's kind of, you know, tough luck Newcastle, but that's where you are right now.
I think to just jump in on that, there's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
I was going to say there's a chain in football, isn't there? And ultimately, Newcastle are not at the top of that chain. If you go by recency bias, Real Madrid are the pinnacle of club football, and they have the most pulling power, which I think is why when you look at the business they do, they get players of the caliber of Trent for a minimal fee or for free when their contracts end, because players will wait out and will go there. It is ultimately the pinnacle of club football, based on recency bias. Newcastle are below us in the pecking order, and Isak wants the performance and the challenge of Champions League and Premier League football at the highest level. I don't think people are fickle to recognise that. I don't think it's hypocrisy either. The way Liverpool fans are acting, it's emotional. There was a lot of anger towards Trent because he was ours and he went somewhere, and the way he went about it. And it's the same for Newcastle. He got them their first trophy in 70 years, was it? He is a massive asset to them, and arguably he is the reason they performed quite as well as they have the last couple of years, because he brings in so many goals. But he's done his job there, and he wants to move on to the next thing. And I get that they are frustrated the way he's gone about it, but that's football and it's a business. Someone's got to lose.
I agree with what you're saying, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, can I just? I've only got one concern with Isak because I've watched everything this afternoon. Obviously, I've watched everything from Newcastle side of it. What Sky report? Sky are so far behind. It drives me crazy. You watch the transfer show at 7 o'clock. They're still way behind on what's happened during there. My concern with Isak is, what if we sign him and then he does the same thing in 2 years' time to us to move to Real Madrid? because there's no doubt, if you look at the quality of squad we've got now, there's no doubt what's going to happen. They're going to come calling again, and they'll pick somebody off. That's my only concern with Isak on this. I don't know what you guys make of
that. Personally, for me, if it's kind of, we'd find ourselves in a similar situation to Newcastle at the moment, in that, okay, well, if you want to go this season, they got to give us 100 million, 120 million quid. If Isak comes to us and plays for 2 years and smacks in 30 goals a season, and at the age of coming to 28, he'll be turning 28 then in that summer that you're on about, Craig.
Yeah.
If that is the case, well then, Real Madrid, if you want him, he's probably going to have another 3 years on his deal. So pay up. Now, thankfully, I think the rebuttal to that is that Real Madrid don't pay that money for that age of a player. They'd rather him run down the deal. So I think we're safe from that, because Real Madrid won't pay that. They'll want to run down the deal, and by the time they run down the deal, he'll be 30. Okay. And then at that point, you've gotten 5 of his prime years out of him. Right. Let him leave.
Okay, Stephen. So I want to come back to each of one of you in turn then, because obviously we've all got our own opinions on Isak. We all want him there. That's pretty obvious. What are your own gut feelings on this now? On how much you think we'll pay for Isak to get this done?
For me, I think anything over 120 million is lunacy. Personally, we probably will end up paying more than that. I won't be happy with that fee. If we get him and he scores, for me, you see, the thing about it is that I look at the Florian Wirtz fee, and that was off the back of him getting the German Player of the Year 2 years in a row, and getting over 30 goal contributions 2 years in a row, and being quite literally bulletproof injury-wise for 2 years in a row, and showing that he could be bulletproof after coming back from an ACL injury, which is major as well on top of that. Mm-hmm. So I think he warranted that fee, and it's only £1 million over the British record as well. If we're going to go smash that for Isak, he needs to be able to play every game of the season, packing in 25 Premier League goals a season, in my opinion, to be worth that fee. And he needs to be as bulletproof as possible injury-wise. Now, maybe that's why we got Ekitike as well, so that if he isn't as bulletproof injury-wise, you've basically got an Isak light there to come in and be the guy that comes in instead of him. I wouldn't personally be happy with more than 120 million, but I'll give it to the two lads. Drew, I'll throw it to you first with regards to what fee you would be. If you're Richard Hughes, what fee are you comfortable with paying?
I think 120, 130 with the add-ons. I think it's just the market this season too. With you see Ekitike, Sesko, Gyökeres, Pedro, the strikers are going for 60, 70, 80 mil. And these are strikers, forward players that we're kind of they're quality, but they're not that finished product yet. So if Isak's the finished product, what's the percentage bumper on from let's say an 80 million? So I think for me, it's, especially with the dealings going on, it's not it's clear we have a big war chest. And then when you look at the top 5 clubs in terms of net spend so far this summer, Liverpool aren't in the top 5. So that kind of money management, the finance guys are doing great. So for me, the price is if you can afford it, then when does it become funny money? And it's already at that level now when you're paying 80 million for Sesko. So for me, that's not as big an issue on the fee. It's is this the player you want? Is it the right player for the squad? And then the other factor for me is I kind of like the idea of these 2 big, huge blockbuster signings like the Florian Wirtz and Isak, because I think it spreads the pressure around the performance. I wouldn't want it to be Wirtz being oh, he's the 110 whatever 100 pound man, all pressure on him to perform and do that. Versus if you have 210 pound men, then it's just kind of everyone's just jealous at that point, which we've already seen from fan reactions on social media. So I think that kind of spreads it around, and I'm not too concerned unless it gets towards 150, because then it becomes, what else could you have gotten? I think the 120 to 130 is probably a fair pay range and could save Newcastle face, get the player we want, etc. But when it's getting to 150, then it's like you could have bought two, Ekatikes at that point, or get other positions we sorely need.
Yeah, Ben, what do you think?
I'll be really honest. I think anything in excess of 100 million is. You look at players that are game changing, £100 million players that are going to win you titles and European trophies. We've arguably got four. I know I appreciate the age is different, but you've got the likes of Salah, that sort of level of ability. Van Dijk's, Alisson, and Wirtz. He's not in that category. And the reality is, do I think he ever will be? Probably not. I think he's an excellent striker. I think he's proven that he can do it in the Premier League at Newcastle. I think anything in excess of 100 million is. Would we be doing it if we didn't have so much money to spend? Absolutely not. We wouldn't even entertain the idea of it because it is a ludicrous price for that sort of player. He's not a player like an Mbappe or a Haaland. He's not on their level. And I appreciate the very different playing styles to what Isak is. But they are players. Mbappe scored a hat-trick in a World Cup final. That's a 100 million, 150 million pound player. Isak isn't that. And I can't justify myself more than 100 million. The only flip side to that is today's market, as you were saying, Sesko, Gorkarez, Ekatike, for the prices that they've paid for them, it does make sense going to 120. I just don't think personally he's worth 120.
I'd agree. I personally don't think he's worth 120 either. I just think that's what the club would go for. It all depends on the add-ons, because if it's 100 million and then 10 million and then another 10 million in really hard add-ons that have to be reached by, Premier League win, Champions League win, at that point, you don't really care if it reaches that kind of a way. If it's 110 million overall and you're like, okay, well, appearances, goals and stuff, brings it up to 110 million, you can live with it, because if he hits those add-ons, it means he's playing well. And then if he hits up to the 120 million or beyond that, where you're like, it has to be the Premier League or the Champions League, you're kind of like, I mean, that kind of a way. If we win a Premier League and a Champions League and we have to pay an extra 10 million on top of the 110 that we've already paid, I don't think anybody is going to cry about that. But I'm just going to go through a couple of the comments here before we move on to some of the other topics. So we have Titan Krolos here mentioning that Isak is 26 years old this summer, and it is probably one of his last big chances to move to a big club. That's why he's pushing this hard. So at 29 years old, when his contract runs down, it's just going to be way too late. It's exactly right. He signed a 6-year contract at the age of 23 when he really shouldn't have, being perfectly honest, especially with that Newcastle project. That Newcastle project was dead in the water. And this idea of it's not our money, I absolutely hate it. Because while no, it's not our money, it hinders spending elsewhere. If you have a set budget, now fans basically have found all the Bitcoin they invested the Coutinho money into this summer, and that's just why we're able to spend this much. But on a UEFA basis that we have to stick to, we're only able to spend 70% of our turnover. So the commercial side has to be absolutely booming for us to be able to spend this. Thankfully it is, because of how much these jersey sales are going for. We're probably going to hit about 800 million in turnover and be over 150 million ahead of where Man United are expected to be, which in itself is madness. But winning helps that. So while no, it's not our money, if there's only so much water in a bucket, you kind of have to tune it out to be so that you don't sell yourself short. But just looking up here through a couple of the other comments, what a name, by the way. Not even going to say it. There is a chance Isak doesn't go to Liverpool. So who does Liverpool look at as well? Bradley Barcola. That seems to be the general consensus between Fabrizio Romano and a couple of other guys. Fabrice Hawkins and Lequip from France as well have also mentioned this too. And Loic Tanzi is another guy that's very, very reliable. Yep.
Can I just jump in there? I think personally, I think Barcola is a better purchase than Isak, given the price, the age. I think you're looking at someone that can come in over the next 2 years, and presumably Salah over the next 2 years. We will start to see a decline at some point. That's going to fill in that right wing spot. I'll be really honest. I think Barcola is a much better option than Isak for that amount of money.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think he's a way better option because he has the flexibility to work all across the front three. My only issue that I've always sort of had with Barcola is his frame. He's 6'4" tall, but he weighs less than Harvey Elliott, which to me is mind-boggling. How a guy that can be that height can weigh that little. Like that would be my fear, is that if you're going to play him through the middle, he would very much have to be a false nine because he probably wouldn't be able to bang properly with the big centre backs. But then you're also then hindering Florian Wirtz by sort of dropping into his same position too and sort of his area. But then Florian Wirtz can just play anywhere, so it's grand and it's fine. That'd be my only worry with him, is that maybe the body doesn't hold up. Just wanted to point this one out. No, I don't. Not regularly. No, I'm not really a fan of Everton. Hopefully somebody gets that joke. But anyways, we're going to end it there and we're going to move on to the next topic. I'm not going to entertain that further. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you jump over to our YouTube page if you're watching on Twitter at the moment. We have over 4,000 people watching us at the moment, so thank you so much for everybody tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe when you do jump over there. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos. Anything Liverpool are running their Fantasy Premier League this year. The link on our pinned Twitter page, and also put it into the description down below too, so don't worry about that. Winner gets €100 or £85. Second place gets €50 or about £40, and then third place is €25 or about £20. So all a bit of fun. Make sure you go over to the Twitter page and make sure you like, follow, and repost it, and you got to comment your team name. We did a live stream yesterday based on all of our FPL names, and I gotta say there was some very, very good ones in there. We had James Dean, who's no relation to the actor, by the way. His team name I thought was very clever, is Frimpong and Prosper, for all the nerds that are watching us, which I thought was quite good. We then had, who else did we have? Charlie, who was the guy that set it up. His was Frim Ping Pong, was another one. That was a good one that was around. Not that many Arne Slot ones this season, I won't lie. My one was my own personal favorite, because of course it was, because I'm biased. It was Gyoktua. So I play on words from all the famous shit from last summer. Okay. Going to move on now to the news regarding Giovanni Leoni and Marc Guehi, because apparently from everything that I'm seeing here is that Paul Joyce has just now reported it as well, that Liverpool are advancing in talks with Crystal Palace over a deal for Marc Guehi as they urgently seek defensive reinforcements. Jesus, don't paint it as desperate as that, Paul. They might throw another 10 million on it. But Romano has also reported, as we did say earlier with breaking news, that both Marc Guehi and Giovanni Leoni have said yes to Liverpool, and the negotiations are ongoing with both clubs for both players. Giovanni Leoni is an 18-year-old centre-back who is 6'5", a defensive duel monster, playing for Parma in Serie A, and obviously we've seen how good Marc Guehi was in the in the Charity Shield, where he won the very famous dinner plate that Arsenal and Man United fans love to add into their trophy counts. But Drew, I'll throw it over to you first with regards to both of these players. I guess we'll start on the more known one that everybody probably would have watched more of, and then we'll touch on Leoni, where I can bring all the stats into it and everybody can make their opinions on it. What are your thoughts on Guehi coming to Liverpool? He seems to be very fond of it, especially in a World Cup year where he might be willing to give up minutes to then join a club like us, rather than being the captain at Palace and essentially solidifying his place as a starting centre-back for England. Do you think that maybe... Now, obviously, what Slot and Hughes have told him has assured him that he won't lose a starting spot, but if that's the case, does that worry you for Konate, maybe?
Not so much. I think that for third choice center back, we were looking at Gomez at this point after Quansah left. So and we also know Konate picks up a small injury here or there and can miss 6 weeks. So I don't think there's necessarily that's the writing on the wall for Konate. If we do get Guehi, which looks likely now. I think for me, the eye test, I like him as a player. I thought he did well for England. I think he got into that side and then very comfortably took that position. I know that there isn't the best challenging right now for the England center back squad, especially when you have the likes of John Stones always injured, Gomez always injured, so never getting a shout in there. But Guehi seems solid. When I've seen him play Crystal Palace, he does well. England, he did well. So there's no complaints for me on the eye test. I'm sure you know the stats way greater than me on this front. I looked at his FBref page to get a sort of comparison to see how he does, and it's doesn't have absolutely amazing stats on the FBref. It's 80s, 70s in terms of defensive stats compared to other players, and then the players they listed in comparison to was Nathan Collins of Brentford, Matt Doherty, Trevor Chalobah. So it wasn't that impressive from the stats point of view, at least on that comparison. But again, the eye test for me was I think he's a solid player.
Yeah. The only issue that I have with Marc Guehi personally, brilliant on the ball, brilliant progressive passer, and we'll touch on all of this now when we jump onto Leoni as well, because I have done up a couple of bits that compare both Konate, Van Dijk, Giovanni Leoni, and Marc Guehi, so we'll kind of see where they all sit in what Slot asks of their centre backs to do, which is win your duels, win your aerial duels, hold on to the ball, progress the ball well, and win tackles and win the ball back, and just more or less basically what you want your central defensive midfielder to be in this day and age is good on the ball, good in the duel, and good in the air. What you want. My only worry with Marc Guehi is his aerial win percentage. Ben, with Marc Guehi, obviously watching him in the Charity Shield, he really led that line for Palace, and he has done all of last season. He more so plays as a left-sided centre-back sometimes, and he doesn't really play as a centre for that Palace side, because that's more LaCroix who plays there and just mops up everything because he's got the pace to be able to do it. Where do you see him coming in as maybe a Konate replacement, or is this just let's get 3 good, solid, starting quality centre backs that we can manage the minutes of Konate, who loves a knock, and also Virgil van Dijk, who's now going to be 34 in footballing terms, is basically a pensioner at this point? Or do you see it as he's coming in as a replacement?
I'd like to say he's coming in to challenge the first team for a first team place. I think ultimately it comes down to what we'll find out hopefully in the next month or so, with whether Konate is going to sign a contract extension or not. I think it's a cute bit of business. He's done it in the Prem. We know he can handle that. We know that whoever it is, always up to their level. They play a lot better when they play alongside Van Dijk. You've got to assume that he's someone that he's going to challenge Konate, which I'm not against at all. I think Konate, when he's on his game, he's brilliant. He's unbelievable, and he's got a massive future ahead of him. I think sometimes he can look a bit lackluster. And I think it can take a while to get going sometimes. It can take him 3 or 4 games to get up to speed. It might bring a bit more out of him. I think it's a cute bit of business. 30 million, 5 million in add-ons maybe, I think would be very sensible. I think it's a bit of business that a lot of other title challengers are sleeping on. If you're City and you see Guehi going for 30, 35 mil, I don't see why you wouldn't be throwing your name into the hat to get that deal done, if I'm really honest.
Yeah, it's a strange one when you think about it, because I think, see, the issue is I think with Man City, there's so much rotation there that maybe he doesn't want that with that back line and how. See, he would have fit it, but see, and as well, they already have Gvardiol that would play that left-sided centre back while Ait Nouri bombs forward. So maybe there's not really that much of a place for him there. Arsenal are Arsenal. They just want to park a bus in front of their box and hope Gyökeres can score every goal for them this season, and maybe hope Saka's hamstrings don't explode trying to cover for him. United are United. They're playing a back three, which might suit him as well. But the issue then comes with that they're just dog shit. And then you have Palace that are already in. And to be honest with you, I think this Guehi news has accelerated because of Palace's appeal to the Court of Arbitration of Sport falling through. And the second that happened, he probably might have stayed if they were in Europa League. And he'd be like, look, I'll stay. We'll get us through Europa League, maybe get us a bit of money for next season. That's all good. And I'll just go for free next summer. Cool, no problem. Now that they're in the Conference League, I get the feeling he's just like, no, I'm gone. Look, I want to go play Champions League with Liverpool. They're knocking on the door. I could have maybe stayed for Europa League, but Conference League, no, I'm going to go play with the big boys. Craig, the Guehi business, as Ben rightly said, is a very cheeky bit of business. It's very good business. And it's also the lovely opportunistic business that Liverpool have been so well known for the past number of years. Kind of similar to the Isak deal on the opposite end of the spectrum of spending, I suppose. But how did you feel watching him against us in the Charity Shield game? In the first half, Palace looked very exposed. And what was ideal about it is we didn't really go down his side in the first half. It was very much targeting the left-hand side in the first half. And then when Ekitike came off, we kind of became a bit toothless in attack. But how did he impress you in that Charity Shield game, Craig?
First thing is, before if you look at the game, if you look at when the teams were lining up in the tunnel, I don't know if you saw what I saw, but if you look at the way Arne Slot shakes his hand and the way Virgil looks at the camera, when Virgil looks, he knows. And it was interesting, the interview he gave afterwards, Virgil, which is well documented now. I think the way he played, he doesn't look flustered at all. He's calm under pressure. I agree with what you said, Stephen, about him being susceptible in the air. That doesn't worry me. And I think what I'm pleased about here is, no disrespect to Joe Gomez, because he's glass. He really is, he's glass. He might as well be sponsored by Centel and Glass or Pilkingtons for me. But I think the reason we're moving so quick on this is, what if Virgil gets injured and he's out for 3-4 weeks? Who are you going to put? Who are you going to put aside of Canate? You're not going to put Endo, are you? You're not going to put Andy Robertson there. So this makes a lot of sense. And obviously with the younger lad who we're looking at in Italy, they're calling him Baby Virgil already. So that speaks volumes for itself. So I think with Marc Guehi, don't forget, even with Isak, it's a World Cup year and every player wants to be playing for team football, right? Even one fella who we've got in our own squad and he's been told the only way he gets back into Italy's team is regular first team football. Chiesa, I love the fella, I don't want him to go, but that's another issue, another story. Yeah, he's a clever bit of business because, I didn't want Man City coming in for him, because if City come in, he could have jumped ship and gone to them. I think this is very, very clever, very astute. I don't think anybody saw it coming apart from us after the weekend. I think with what's happened to Crystal Palace, it's a shame because they won the FA Cup and they should have been in the third tier competition. But rules are rules unless you're Manchester City. To be honest, my late godfather played for Manchester City, Francis Lee, and he's never forgiven me for being a Liverpool fan, to be honest with you. But, and if you look at my surname, and it's not made up, that is the family surname, all red, yeah? And if you look at what made me laugh 2 weeks ago, the membership the club have just brought out, what it's called. So I contacted the club. I said, why are you not giving me a free membership? And they just split it into two. So it made me laugh. But I think I agree with Ben and I agree with you, Stephen. This is a clever bit of business from Liverpool. Because if you look at I think I've been thinking about this a lot since we lost to PSG on the Champions League. This is still wrangling with Arne Slot and the way we lost to PSG. And I think this is the reason why we're spending like we are. because this has hurt him really badly, and he wants to win the Champions League this year, and he wants to retain the league, which is we've not done that since 1990, 40 years maybe now, right? So this is clever, and I think all Liverpool fans should be really having a cheeky smile and a glass of wine and celebrating with this deal if it gets over the line. And they're also bringing this young kid in who, they're planning for the future, and things are looking good for the next probably 4 or 5 years for me. But I don't know what you guys think, but that's my take on it at the minute. But things can change in football.
Just going to jump on there and say, I think it's good business for Palace as well. This, if it's rumoured to be about 35 million for a player going into the final year of his contract, considering again they've been dropped down to the third tier of European football, and what Parish said after the game the other day, he doesn't want him to go for free, a player of that caliber. It's good business for all parties, and I think it's, like you said, it's the complete opposite end of the scale for the Isak deal in every aspect of a transfer. Both clubs have negotiated well, and both clubs are getting something that they probably need out of it. And I think that'll be wrapped up, within the next day or two.
Yeah, I think so. Drew, before we move on to Giovanni Leoni and the Italian baby Verge, what's your thoughts on Marc Guehi, like just as a player itself? And sort of like, as you said, the eye test, like yourself, how it works. And do you, I suppose I'll pose the same question to you regarding that I did to Ben. Do you think he's going to come in and challenge? And that's what Arne Slot's, he wants those 3 solid starting players that he can rotate, which protects Verge, protects Konate, and also you just have a young guy in Leoni there. Do you think we loan him back maybe? Or does he come and join the squad, Leoni?
I think he comes and joins the squad. I don't think you leave that up to chance in terms of injuries. As we've all mentioned, Konate, I think the word used, prone to a knock. Like, we all know that. I don't think he's had a single season where he just played every game or was at least available for every game. And then Craig mentioned the nightmare scenario of if Virgil got injured, which isn't out of the realm of possibility. And you really need that cover. So that's where, like, we've all seen, we've been through the center back crisis, where we were playing like Henderson and Fabinho in center back. Like, we don't want to have to rely on like Endo and Gravenberch and like Andy Robertson to fill in at the worst case scenario. But I don't think Guehi takes Konate's place, but I think it's up for grabs with that eventual Konate knock.
Yeah.
I think if Guehi takes his chance, it's like it's right there. Or if he comes in and he plays well and he takes his chance, like Slot can be like, okay, it's yours. Similar to how Kwanzaa, that first game of the season last season, Kwanzaa had it. It was his, clear from the start, but then Slot took him off at halftime and then put on Konate, and it was Konate's position after that. I think he's not afraid, and you can see by the transfer dealings of how we've done this here. He knows, like, if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. Or he knows what he wants. So if he's, behind the signature of Guehi, he's like, I want this guy on the team, that just shows the quality there, that's ability to challenge for that starting position. Like, I don't think he's, obviously the nightmare scenario protection, but, what we've all talked about with Guehi World Cup year, and then in terms of, do you want to just sit on the bench? I think he wouldn't come unless he thinks he can get his way into the team. And I don't think Slot would have brought him in just for cover in a worst case scenario. He obviously thinks he's quality. And then for Leoni, I think he can only benefit from being with the first team and then practicing. If he's baby Verge, he better get a year in with Verge and then see where things stand.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I think there's also an option for a bit of a tactical shift there as well, because they're three centre backs playing a back three. I think certainly when you look at the sort of December-January period where Salah goes to AFCON, I think the consensus is at the moment that Frimpong will be playing more attacking football, could potentially move into that right wing position. That's what I'm getting from what Arnie sort of said. And the Community Shield the other day, I'll be really honest. I felt we looked quite open going down the left hand side. I felt Gakpo had to do a lot more covering, and that will hinder his attacking ability. And we know what Slot's like, changing tactics, positions throughout game several times. I do think this is possibly also um, a way for him to shore up the defence and potentially, when needed, play a back three with two deep line centre defensive midfielders, which I think certainly when it comes to Europe it's a big tactical shift. But I think it's another what is it? Another bow to the arrow, another bow to the arrow, another string to the bow. Got there in the end.
Feather in the cap would have worked as well. But we're going to move on to Leoni now, because I have lots of numbers and lots of stats, and you guys, Craig and Ben, you'll get used to me. Drew loves them. Drew's a big nerd like me too. But before we get into all of that, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. Anything Liverpool is running their Fantasy Premier League. I said it again. Fantasy Premier League competition this year, with the winner getting €100 or £85, second place getting €50, about £40, and third place getting €25, which is about £20. The link is on our Twitter page. There's currently over 5,500 people watching us at the moment across both YouTube and Twitter. So make sure to jump over to our Twitter page to have a look at that. I'll try and get it into the description as well for everybody, the link, so that you can jump down into that after the stream. So make sure that you jump in there. Deadline is kickoff on Friday, which is 8 p.m. British time, for Liverpool kickoff against Bournemouth in the first game of the 25-26 Premier League season that we're all very much looking forward to. And I feel will be a bit of a hockey score, personally, considering Bournemouth have literally just lost another centre-back while losing a keeper, while losing another starting centre-back, and having lost their starting left-back to us. I feel, unless they're able to properly pull it out the bag, I get the feeling that we're going to have an absolute hockey score. But I digress. We are going to move on to Giovanni Leoni, and I am now going to begin sharing some screens, because I want to see which one this is. Yeah, we'll start sharing some screens here now. Now, this particular app is called Data MB Pro, and this is an app that I love using. So across our bottom axis here, we have defensive duel percentages one, and then across our top axis here, we have our aerial duel percentages one. As you can see, we have Giovanni Leoni right smack in here with Ibrahima Konate, and obviously we have our massive outlier up here in Virgil van Dijk. This is where I was worried about Marc Guehi. His aerial duels are barely over 52%. Whereas if you take a look at Konate, over 60%, Giovanni Leoni, nearly 65%. And then you just have the man mountain, Virgil van Dijk, at over 70% for both. He is the standard. That's what you want. But if an 18-year-old is nearly matching Ibrahima Konate already on the duels perspective, it's very impressive. Now, I'm going to move on, and just because we have about 15 minutes left, I'm going to sort of take a look at the rest of them as well. So here across the bottom axis, we have possession-adjusted sliding tackles. Van Dijk never does them because he never really goes to ground. And then along the top axis here, you have possession-adjusted interceptions. Leoni, kind of okay. Marc Guehi loves going to ground. He doesn't really work on the percentages side of things. Konate is kind of your in-betweener that does both, and Virgil van Dijk is very much the intelligent player that defends with intelligence and cuts things out left and right. Lastly, then, we have our progressive passing, and we have our progressive passing accuracy. The closer you are to the top right, the better. Virgil van Dijk doesn't make that many progressive passes, about 15 per game, but is ridiculously accurate with them. Konate is the same, a little bit less accurate, and Marc Guehi makes an awful lot more, about 10 more than Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate, but is a lesser percentage than both at just under 60, just under 70%. Now, Leoni, unfortunately, he plays in a Parma side that isn't necessarily the greatest progressor of the ball. That being said, if you do watch him, he looks like he almost plays the game at a slower speed than everybody else. And I don't mean that in a bad way. The way I mean that, I'm just going to move back to our defensive duels. The way that I mean that with Giovanni Leoni is that he plays the game at a slower pace because he's so much quicker than everybody else and he's so much calmer on the ball. He doesn't look phased whatsoever in any way, shape, or form when I've watched him, which is why he reminds me of Virgil van Dijk so much, that it's just he's so calm. It's ridiculous. I'll go from bottom up, where I have Ben here on the bottom, and then I'll go Drew, and then I'll go Craig. Having looked at the numbers there based on the last season, Ben, who are you more excited for if we get both? Is it Giovanni Leoni being 6'5" and 18 and having all these physical traits, or is it a little bit more polished Marc Guehi, even though he has those slackings in his aerial duels?
That depends on the vision, doesn't it? Giovanni is clearly they're looking at him as a successor to Van Dijk, and if he doesn't, achieve that potential at minimum, we'll sell him on for more than what we buy him for. So it's good business either way. I think Gay comes in, it's the now and present, and that's he's gonna be more important to us winning titles and trophies over the next 2 or 3 years. If you're looking at future proofing, which we have done this season with the likes of Verts and Ekatike, that's what your Giovanni is. He's just a bit younger. So I don't think we'll see too much of him if he comes for 2 or 3 years. But I think beyond there, if he can push and make it into that first team, when Van Dijk starts to decline, or when he can't play as much as he does, I think that is again a very cute bit of business.
Yeah, it really is. And interestingly that you say that one is going to be the successor to the other, because ironically, if I show you their heat maps for last season, which you can get here through SofaScore, hilariously they both play the opposite side. So Marc Guehi is very much a Virgil van Dijk replacement, and it looks like Giovanni Leoni might be a Konate replacement. But looking at that, Drew, and looking at the numbers that I've shown already regarding the duels and everything that goes alongside it, is there a particular one that you're more excited to have come in? It's Leoni, because that guy just looks like he has all. You can't teach being 6 foot. You can't teach a guy that. You can't teach being 6'5" and being this absolute jewel monster that loves getting a foot in here and there. But you also then can't teach the savviness that Marc Guehi has. So it's kind of like you're nearly combine. If you could combine the two, you have the perfect centre back. Is there one that you're more excited about coming in, or is it horses for courses kind of an opinion?
I think Leoni has all the right attributes and qualities, but I think the other stat side is the sample size. Like his sample size is very small, 17, I think, appearances in Serie A. So, like, while it's been very impressive, with that small sample size, you can't guarantee future success from that. Like, all the right qualities are there to invest in, and it's certainly worth the punt on bringing him in. As you said, you can't teach 6'5". Looks like an absolute monster. Faces the like of Lukaku and bullied him, like that kind of thing. All of those are just pluses in that column. But for player I'm more excited about, I'll tag on to what Ben said earlier in the stream, where Van Dijk just elevates the player who plays next to him. So I think bringing in a Guehi and having him play alongside Van Dijk and then learning from him, I think that's only going to see the elevation of his game. So I think just for his experience in the Premier League, and while he might not be the best in certain stat areas, I think his experience and then the eye test for me, where he just seems a capable center back who's risen to challenges like taking his England spot. I think he's ready for that next step at Liverpool. And that's kind of the players I'm most excited to see them get their chance at like the highest level and to see if they take it. So for me, it's Guehi on who I'm most excited to see.
Craig, I'm going to throw it over to you to sort of finish out and round out our day-to-day with regards to all of the numbers that you've seen, all of the talk and the video that you've obviously seen, possibly of both Guehi and Leoni. You might not have seen an awful lot of Leoni. I wouldn't begrade you if you hadn't. Not a lot of people have. Nobody's really sat there on a Tuesday afternoon watching Serie A Parma games, unless you're me, because I love watching Serie A and the Bundesliga. I got called out for saying I knew so much about Ekatike when I happily go to the pub and the pub has Bundesliga games on every evening. So I watched Bundesliga all last season, and Ekatike, I've been on. Drew can attest to it. I've been on the Ekatike train for quite a while, and I was a very smug boy when we signed him, and nobody else said we would. I was unbelievably smug, almost unbearably so. But with see, Drew's just nodding away there, calling me a dickhead. But anyways, with Guehi and Leoni, you very much have your mobile, polished, progressive centre back that's a ball playing centre back in Guehi, and you have just this physical monster in Leoni that you can then develop the technical side with over the course of the years. Because like Guehi's 5 years older than him. If he reaches the similar technical aspect that Guehi has at the moment in those 5 years, by the age of 23, you're probably one of the best centre backs in the world in Leoni. What do you think about both players, looking at everything that we've gone through? And is there somebody that you're more excited for? Is it Guehi or is it Leoni?
Right. Good question. First of all, I watch Serie A and I watch the Bundesliga because I'm retired now. So basically, where I am now, it's my converted garage, and all I do is watch football. If it's not LFC TV, it's Bundesliga, it's Serie A, it's La Liga, it's Premier League, it's Championship, it's League One. Basically, it's just football. Football's my life. It's my passion. In terms of the two guys we're talking about, I'll start with the younger option first. Now, I've watched the footage of him, and he reminds me of Alan Hansen, the way he moves across the ground. He's he looks slow, but his pace is deceptive. His reading of the game for his age is frightening, right? Now, there's an old saying, if you're young enough, you're good enough, right? You can look at another sport, I'm going off track here slightly, but go back 12 months and look at Luke Littler at the World Championships. What's happened a year later? The guy's set for life now, right? Going back to Leoni, he's got everything you need. He's 6'5". That's frightening for 18-year-old. They stick him in the greenhouse when he was born or what? I don't know. But he's. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw him in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup games, and basically slowly but surely get him used to the culture of the club, get him used to playing at Anfield on a Thursday night or whatever it may, Wednesday night, Tuesday night, whatever it may be. Get him in, right? Get him training with Virgil and Canate as soon as possible. Obviously, Guehi, he's not gonna come to Liverpool for 35 million and sit on the bench. He's not. He's England's best centre half for me. He's better than that donkey at Old Trafford, which is an hour away from where I live, right? I wouldn't pay Harry Maguire with Harry Ball, to be honest with you, right? And I'm glad Mr. Ruben Interim has kept his little niche together. We've got our group here now, and we're going to be all right this season. Yeah, okay, we've heard it all before, right? So I honestly think Canate will sign a new contract because with Frimpong coming in and with Etatike coming in his French, I can't see Canate leaving now because he's got an international colleague there now, so he'll be really pally with. I can see Canate staying now, but I can honestly see Guehi taking Canate's shot. That's my own thoughts on it, and I think this transfer window we've got now, I've not seen a Premier League transfer window like it by anybody. Not Chelsea, not City, certainly not Arsenal. So I think the money we've spent now. Don't forget the 35 million we sold Joe Kwanzaa for. They're going to use that to sign Guehi. No problem. They've already made 200 million, and you're looking at probably another three or four players leaving. Ben Doak, Vieira, Costa Simicas, Federico Chiesa. So so you're looking at big bucks coming in there. So these two guys are going to come in, and I agree with Ben. I think it's going to be done quicker than what people think. I think we're going to Sky Sports. Their head will be spinning now. Talk Sport will be vomiting again because they don't like us. So I'll sleep well tonight, hopefully, because it's. I've looked at the business what's being done. I'm going to say it now. I think we'll win the league. I do, but I don't see Arsenal. I think City will finish second. I'm going to put that out there. I think Gorkarez. I think he'll be a flop. Tesco. That's 80 million is a lot of money, and it's a big gamble to go to a graveyard and but I think we should be really happy. I mean, there'll be a lot of Guinness drunk where you two guys are, Drew and Steve. That's for sure. Where things are going. I don't know what your poison is, Ben, but I don't drink. But I'll be on the coffee. That's for sure. But I'm quite happy. These two guys coming in. My last question to you all is, on a percentage from 0 to 100, what's your percentage on Isak being a red by the 2nd of September?
Yeah, we'll finish on that. So well, Craig, we'll start with you. What's your percentage? And then we'll go to Ben, Drew, and myself, and we'll finish on that.
I think it's 90% done.
Ben, what about you?
I'll go 80.
Drew?
I think it's 70.
I would have said 72. Until we get, if Fabrizio Romano turns around and drops that Newcastle and Liverpool are in negotiations, that immediately bumps it up. But as it stands at the minute, for me, it's about 70% too. But we are going to finish it there, guys, just over the hour mark. I want to thank this over 6,000 people that have joined us this evening for all of our chats. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, to like and subscribe. Make sure you have all of your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. We will be live again tomorrow from 7 p.m. British time, so make sure you're around for that. Also, the FPL League that Anything Liverpool are running at the moment. The link will be in the description, and also it's over on our Twitter page. It's the pinned tweet. So make sure you jump over and join that. The deadline is 8 p.m. Friday, Liverpool's kickoff time. So don't even think about the time. Just think, I need to be signed up for this before Liverpool kick off against Bournemouth. And that's the way you need to look at it. Winner gets €100 or £85. Second place gets €50 or about £40. And then third place gets €25 or £20 thereabouts. So make sure you jump over to that. You got to like, you got to follow, you got to repost it, and you also got to put your name, team name in the comments below so that we know who you are. So make sure you do that. But without further ado, whoops, didn't need to hit that. Without further ado, I'm going to leave everybody for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.